Rishus, Morada Asra. I see that you have, in this Kehila, they have a tremendous trust and of their rabbi. There's not one clock in this room. Where I am the Rav, they have clocks on every single wall. I have a watch, though. I want to thank the OU and Rabbi Shor for inviting me and giving me the zchus of being able to address you. Am Chadash and Lev Chadash, I think, has another twist to it. It's an Eish Torah LeYaakov. We are living through very difficult times, times of misfortune. We have brothers and sisters who are hostages in the most cruel way possible, languishing in the tunnels of Hamas. We have wars on every side of us, and people being hurt and people being killed, and so many of our holy and precious chayalim who have fallen during this time. It's an Eish Torah LeYaakov. It's a time of misfortune, difficult times. But Chazal say on the pasuk, Eish Torah hi LeYaakov umimeno yivasheya, that if we approach and deal and know how to utilize these difficult times properly, we can change them into times of simcha. So we are a nation that's going through difficulties. We want to be an Am Chadash. We want to renew ourselves to be in situations that are not the way that they are now. And the only way to do that is to get a Lev Chadash, is to renew our hearts and use our hearts in a better way than we've been using it in the past. Chazal tell us, HaRav Yisurim boyim alav. If someone sees that they are beset with suffering, then they tell us to do the following. Yefash beish b'maisav. We should investigate our deeds, uyamashmeish b'maisav, and see if there's things that we can correct, things that we can improve. And that's the first way to deal with difficult situations. It always bothered me, and I saw that my Rebbe, Reb Gifter, was bothered with the same thing. Why does it say HaRav Yisurim boim alav? A person sees suffering coming, befalling him. You don't see suffering, you feel it. Should have said a person who feels suffering that is coming to him. Why one who sees the suffering? I think perhaps it means the following. The Torah describes Moshe Rabbeinu as Vayetze el Echo Vayar Besivlosam. Moshe Rabbeinu went out to his brethren and he saw their suffering. And Rashi says, what does that mean to see someone else's suffering? Nosan eina v'libo lios meitzer aleihem. He put his eyes and his heart to suffer along with them. He not only had mercy on them, but he commiserated with them. He felt their pain with his eyes and with his heart. And that means that it's not enough just to feel somebody else's pain, but you have to have intellect also and know what the pain is and how it's possible to alleviate that pain. If you only have a heart, so you may do things that'll harm a person thinking that you're helping them. And if you only have an intellect and eyes to understand their pain, you may write papers about poverty, but you'll never give a penny to tzedakah. So you need eyes, you need intellect to understand, and you need a heart to be able to feel also. So if you have that heart and you have those eyes, and it's not only your own suffering, but it's the suffering of OUIsrael. It's the suffering of your neighbor. It's the suffering of those that maybe you don't even know, but you read about, and even those that you don't read about. So then what should you do? You want to help correct the situation. So Chazal say, Yefashpesh b'maisav v'yamashmesh b'maisav. The Mesilas Yesharim says, what's the double thing? One is investigate what you're doing and see if there are things that you can correct. Ein tzaddik ba'aretz asher yaseh tov v'lo yechta. Nobody is perfect. There's always things that we can correct and do better. That's yefashpesh. See what you can correct, negative things that can be corrected. And yamashmesh is then look at the good things that you do and see if you can improve on them. You give tzedakah, you do chesed, you learn Torah, can you do it better? That's a Mesilas Yesharim. I think there's another meaning also. Yefashpesh, the Mishnah says that in the Beis HaMikdash, there were little doors or little windows called pishpushim. Through them you could see and hone in on very small things. First, a person has to investigate their deeds and see specific things they can correct and specific things they can improve. But then you mashmesh. The Rambam says that when a person repents and wants to get better and be better, so he shouldn't only concentrate on the things that he's done wrong, but he should look and see what caused it. Maybe there are bad character traits that need to be corrected. Maybe bad ideas, bad worldviews, bad ideas that a person may have. Values, standards that maybe have to be altered. So first, yefashpesh, concentrate on the individual things. And then you mashmesh, pick them up and see what's under them, see what's causing them. And maybe then it's a greater thing to work on one's character traits, one's ideas and one's values that brought him to bring those things that need to be corrected and improved. So then after one investigates one's actions, and nobody can do it for you. It's a very private and individual thing. So the Gemara gives you a program of how it's possible to induce this kind of change. The Gemara says the following: La'olam yargiz adam yetzer hatov al yetzer hara. A person should always try to agitate his good inclination over his bad inclination. Right? To see to it that you're able to follow what your yetzer hatov wants you to do and not the yetzer hara. Nitzcho, if you're successful with that, fine. What if you're not successful? Doesn't work. So then, Yasok Batorah should open a sefer and learn some Torah. Nitzcho, the Torah helps to protect a person from sin. So if you're successful with that learning of Torah, fine. Lo nitzcho, what if you weren't successful? Didn't help. Yikra Kriya Shema. Then read the Kriya Shema. It's also a protection. Nitzcho, if you're successful with that, fine. What if you're not successful even with that? Then Yizkar Yom HaMavis. Then you should remember that you're a mortal being. Remember the day of death. Remember that nobody's here forever. And that we're mortal human beings. So they ask very simply, if in the end, remembering the day of death is going to help you to avoid sin and to correct things, then why beat around the bush? You know, learning Torah is very nice, and reading Kriya Shema is very nice, but right now we're working on ourselves. So get to the point and remember the day of death right away. Forget about the other things right now. If that's in the end going to help. Perhaps the answer is the following. remembering that we're mortal and remembering the day of death can have negative implications. And a person can come to negative responses by remembering the day of death. And until you negate those negative responses, remembering the day of death isn't going to help. What are those negative responses? The first one is, a person knows that he's mortal. Here's the news that, God forbid, a missile hit here and people were killed or whatever, and you remember that you're also mortal. So the first negative response is, I can control my fate. Just have to do the right things. If I'll jog and I'll eat health foods, I'll live forever. Nothing can happen to me. By the way, the person who initiated jogging died of a heart attack while he was jogging. That doesn't mean that a person shouldn't jog and that a person should not eat health foods and good, healthy food. It's not what it means. You should. You have to do your hishtadlus. You have to make your effort to do things that will protect you. But never think that you're in control. Because people can do all the right things and Rahman al-Itzlan doesn't help. And people can do all the wrong things and they're the ones who live to be 105. So a person is required to do what's right and to do what is healthy, but never think that you are the one that's totally in control. And therefore, the first thing is, Yargiz Yetzer HaTov al Yetzer HaRa. The only thing that we are in complete control of is our fight with the Yetzer Hara, our moral choices. That we're in charge of. That HaKadosh Baruch Hu gave us. Everything else, Hakol bidei shamayim, chutz miyira shamayim. Everything is in the hands of heaven except for our moral choices. So the first thing to do is Yargiz Yetzer HaTov al Yetzer Hara. Remember what's in your hands to control and what's in God's hands to control. So you won't come to the negative response of remembering you're mortal to think that you can control that totally. Second negative response. We're going to die anyway. So nothing's worth anything. And person goes into depression, pulls the covers over his head and stays in bed for the rest of the day. What's anything worth? It's all going to end in the Beis HaChaim. So life in this world is not important. On that, Chazal said, Yasok b'Torah. Learn a little Torah. Torah takes every physical thing in this world and makes it important. Either there's a mitzvah or something to avoid. But everything in this world has intense and eternal importance. Every second in this world is important. And everything you do, everything that you come in contact with, every person that you interact with, gives you the opportunity to create eternity. So don't think that the world is worthless just because you're not going to be here forever. But while you're here, do what you can. Yofa shoachas shel tshuva ma'asim tovim ba'olam hazeh mikol chayei olam haba. Better than the whole world to come is 1 second of using this world properly. Because if you use this world properly, you create more and more eternity. More olam haba, which you can't do once you're there. Once you're there, whatever you have, you have. So this world is infinitely and eternally important. So don't make the mistake to think that because we're all going to die, so life isn't important at all, just the opposite. Life is very important. And the third negative response is, eat, drink, and be merry, for tomorrow we die. Achol v'nishteh. A total abandon. Might as well enjoy yourself while you're here. Not going to be here, right, in a few years or in a few decades. So you might as well enjoy yourself while you're here. Total abandon. Eat, drink, and be merry. On that, the Torah says, read the Kriya Shema. The Shema tells us that there's reward and punishment, and there's a yoke of heaven that a person has to accept. And this world is not a world that's hefker. It's not a world of abandon. It's a world where a person has responsibility and has to live according to that responsibility. And after you've negated those 3 negative responses, now remembering the day of death can be very positive. What's positive about it? That every second of life is important because it is limited. It's not here forever. This life in this world is a means, it's a means to reach a goal. The goal is eternal life. And every second in this world, you have the ability to create more and more of that eternal life. And the situation we're in lends itself to remind us of these responses, because we're reminded of our mortality daily. Pick up a newspaper, listen to the news. This one perished, this one died, this one was wounded. And we are very, very much aware that life in this world is limited. There's always a constant danger that we are in. And we also come to the realization that every second is important. When you have 10 minutes of a warning to get to a safe place because there are ballistic missiles coming, you know how important 10 minutes in this world is. And maybe sometimes it's down to a few seconds, but those seconds are extremely important. And your life may depend on a second. So then we come to the realization that life is not something to squander, but life is very important, and every second is important. And use it properly. Fill it up with good deeds, with mitzvahs, with Torah learning. Next time you have an opportunity to do a kindness to a neighbor, take the opportunity. Don't let it slip through your hands. Because who knows if that opportunity is going to come again. That is the positive response. And we have hostages that we're constantly reminded about, who languish in tunnels in Hamas, and nothing is in their control except one thing: their moral choices. There it's clear that we're not the balabatim, we're not the ones in control. If you think about those hostages, they have no control over their life. The only thing they control is how they react to the situation they're in. And we know of stories already of heroism, spiritual heroism. One example, but not the only example. Agam Berger. A situation that I couldn't imagine being in. I couldn't imagine remaining steadfast in that situation. So derech emuna bacharti. So that's what we're in control of, even when we're in control of nothing else. So the situation lends itself to tell us that the Ribono Shel Olam is the one who runs this world, and there is din v'dayin. There's a judge and there's a judgment, and every bullet has an address, and every missile has an address, and the world's not hefker. And all the negative responses to remember that we are mortal, we have a daily reminder that those negative responses hold no water. And it's clear that if it wouldn't be for things that we do that are not proper, if there wouldn't be hate, the word hate doesn't mean sin. I don't know what sin means. But hate means chisaron. Something's missing. Right? It says by Shlomo and Bathsheba, V'hoyu ani u'beni chatoyim. Chatoyim means you missed the mark. Something's missing. So if it wouldn't be that because of our actions there's some things missing in this world, the world would be a beautiful place. The world would be a utopia. So what causes it to be a world that's less than utopia? The fact that we do things that make the world less than a utopia. And all tsaros are caused by those things. So if you want to be an Am Chadash, if you want to be a new nation and get out of this misfortune and these difficult times, then Lev Chadash, you need a new heart. You need to direct your heart in the right direction. And I'm not here to tell you what you have to work on. That's, again, a very individual, personal thing. But I can tell you what Chazal said were the causes of the destruction of the Beis HaMikdash. And it's not just the second Beis HaMikdash, because we haven't yet gotten back what was lost with the first Beis HaMikdash. First Beis HaMikdash, second Beis HaMikdash was not a replacement of the first one. It was missing 5 incidental things, like the Shechina, like the Aron, like the Urim V'Tumim. It's like a shul without an Aron Kodesh, without Sidurim, right? Just a place that has just chairs. It's very nice. But that's not what a shul is, not what the Beis HaMikdash was. It was a poor replacement. So we haven't yet replaced the first Beis HaMikdash. And I'm going to tell you which things cause that churban and continue to cause it. Because kol dor shelo nivne Beis HaMikdash keilu nechrav. If the reasons for the churban would go away and we would correct those, each person himself, each person's a little Beis HaMikdash. You have to correct your own little Beis HaMikdash, your own little heart. And if we each work on ourselves, then together we'll be an Am Chadash with a Lev Chadash. But if it wouldn't be that those sins are continued, then the Beis HaMikdash will be built. So what are those sins? I'm going to tell you what they are, and each person hear what they have to hear. The famous Gemara, the first Beis HaMikdash was destroyed because of Gili Arayah, Shvichas Damim, and Avodah Zarah. Immorality, murder, and idolatry. And the second Beis HaMikdash because of Sinas Chinam. Sinas Chinam means baseless, useless hatred. What does that mean? Nobody hates people for no reason. What's Sinas Chinam? Ask anybody, why you hate that guy? He has a list. So what is, who hates people for no reason? I think what it means is the following. Sina does not necessarily mean you hate somebody's guts. I'll prove it to you. The Torah says, Vayehav es Rachel mi Leah. It says that Yaakov Avinu loved Rachel more than Leah. 2 psukim later it says, Vayar Hashem ki snua Leah. God saw that Leah was hated. Now, what do you mean hated? It said that he loved Rachel more. That means he loved Leah. Yaakov Chas v'Shalom didn't hate Leah. If he did, he couldn't live with her. Not allowed to live with a wife that you hate. He just loved Rachel more. So why does it say she was hated? Ahava, love, means a feeling of unity, a feeling of connection. I feel connected to somebody. The word ahava in gematria is echad, one. When you feel one with somebody, al kol pshoyim techasa ava. You like that person, you feel connected to that person, only see good about them. You don't see bad about them. Sina is the opposite. It means you don't feel connected. We're all connected to one neshama. All Jews, right, are one neshama. V'yohavta re'acha kamocha is part of the oneness of Hashem, Ani Hashem, because we're all one nation. Mi ka'amcha Yisrael, goy echad ba'aretz. We receive the Torah ke'ish echad b'leiv echad. But if you don't feel that connection to somebody else, then that leads to seeing all the negative things. Sinas China means sometimes the sina, the disconnection, comes from reasons. You have reasons, and because of that, you feel disconnected. Sometimes the opposite. Because you don't feel a connection, that creates the reasons. It was mentioned Kamsa and Bar Kamsa. Right? If you looked at the Gemara there, everybody was justified. I could understand each one. The guy who, didn't invite his enemy to the party, is ruining his simcha. So he asked him to leave. The guy who innocently came, thinking that perhaps this host wants to make peace, right, didn't want to be insulted and embarrassed publicly. The rabbis, perhaps they had a good reason. They didn't want to get mixed in because they thought it wouldn't help. And why make things worse? Everybody had a justification, except you know why they felt justified? Because they didn't consider the feelings of the other one. They only considered their position. Had they considered the feelings of the other one, they would have come to a different conclusion. Sometimes the hatred is not the result of reasons, but the reasons are the result of the hatred. That's sinas chinam. The reasons don't cause your being disconnected. You just don't feel a connection to other people. And because of that, you create reasons why you want to be separate from them. So that is, and then Chazal say that these sins, not everybody committed idolatry or adultery or are murderers. So there's other sins that are similar to them on a much lower level, but they're also part of it. What were they? Chilul Shabbos. People were mechal Shabbos. That doesn't mean that they necessarily lit fires on Shabbos, but they weren't careful with the laws of Shabbos. Bittul Kriya Shema. They slept late and didn't say Kriya Shema. The Maharsha says they used to have Mosei Shabbos, Malava Malkas, and get drunk, and therefore sleep in on Sunday, and they weren't able to say Kriya Shema. So we're not talking about terrible people. We're talking about sins that, if you don't say Kriya Shema, that's something that is similar to Avodah Zarah because you're not declaring the oneness of Hashem. And also because people weren't honest in business. They didn't deal in their business dealings, in their money matters, honestly. And then the idea of tznius. They weren't modest. They didn't have the midah of busha. They weren't ashamed to do things. They didn't think that anything was inappropriate. Lo nisbaishu zeh mizeh. And also, hushvu kotten legodol. They, what's it called? By shvichas damim, by murder, says that they insulted Talmidei Chachamim, or they took children, school-age children, and took them away from learning Torah. All those things are taking life away from a person. You insult somebody publicly, it's like murdering him. And they didn't reprove and give musar, tochacha one to the other. And they made everybody equal and didn't look up to more important people and didn't understand, a person didn't understand what his status was in this world. And then Chazal say another, Vayimasu be'eretz chemda. They detested Eretz Yisrael. They didn't appreciate it. They weren't willing to fight for it. They weren't willing to give up for it. Vayimasu be'eretz chemda, the chet hameraglim. And they didn't keep Shemitah properly. And they didn't make a brach on the Torah. They didn't appreciate the importance and superiority of Torah learning. All of those things are things that Chazal say resulted in the destruction that we are still in now. And every person who corrects and improves in one of these areas is creating a brick in the ongoing process. We say, Bonei Yerushalayim Hashem. It doesn't say Yivne in the future tense. Bonei Yerushalayim. It's an ongoing process. Since the destruction, it says Mashiach was born when the Beis HaMikdash was destroyed. It's a process. And he'll come when all of those things are corrected. And each and every person can create another brick by correcting, by improving in one of these areas. And it's a very personal thing. You're not going to get from me what you should do. I have enough trouble telling myself what I have to do. I'm not going to tell you. But each person should search their heart and have a leiv chadash to see what we can do, improve, correct, in one of these areas, and we'll know that Kol HaMesabel al Yerushalayim, if you really, really feel the pain of the Churban, and today it's easy to feel the pain, because look around and see the misfortune we're in and how many people are suffering, and what kind of anti-Semitism exists all over the world. So the pain is easy to feel. Kol HaMesabel al Yerushalayim, if you really feel the pain, then zoche v'roa b'simchasa. It's not a future thing, but you'll understand how to alleviate that pain, and you'll work on yourself, and you'll work on your neighborhood and on your kehillah, and you'll see to it that bricks are made for that future Beis HaMikdash. Ki be'eish hitzati, the Rabban Shalom said. Yes, I destroyed the Beis HaMikdash with fire, but be'eish ani asid livnosa. What fire? The fire in each person's heart. The fire of every mitzvah that you do, and every good thought, and every chesed, is another brick in the building of a third Beis HaMikdash, which we should see very, very soon. B'vias Goel Tzedek b'mheira v'yameinu.